I'm Twyla.
And I'm Natalie.
And this is Twyla and Natalie.
And we're going to have fun chatting with you today all about the joys and the pitfalls of being a grown woman.
Indeed. Every week we ask a question. It's usually spurred by something going on in our lives. And we talk about it in a universal way. And hopefully you'll get something out of it too. Mm-hmm. So this is your question today.
Yep.
I like the question. It's a good question. I feel like given how I live my life, the answer might be short, but we'll see. So the question today is, can you spot a toxic person?
This is something I've been thinking about. I have had some situations over the last several years where I've been more aware of, I really believe that Buddhist belief that the same situation will continue to happen in your life until you learn the lesson that you need to learn from it. So if you find yourself like, gosh, this keeps happening to me. Why do I keep finding myself in this situation? It's because you have not learned and changed what you need to learn and change from that situation. So the universe keeps putting it in front of you.
Oh, I thought it was just because I had more than one kid.
Yeah. Well, obviously the lesson you learned was not stopping at one.
Right. There's the lesson, friends.
But I believe that. And so I was doing some reflection as one does. Mm-hmm. And realizing, wow, I found myself in that situation where, again, I'm like in this situation where somebody that I thought was a friend, I felt really betrayed by. And I looked back on the last 10, 15 years and I'm like, that has been kind of a somewhat of a theme. I thought, where am I not spotting this? We all have at some point in our lives toxic personalities. And, can you spot it?
Well, let's kind of dig into what we like by our own definition. What is a toxic personality or a toxic person in your life?
Yeah, for me, it means someone who takes away from more than they bring.
Okay.
There's an even give and take. I feel like you have relationships where it's a good even give and take. Mm-hmm. And then you have times where, of course, you're the person putting more in. And this goes for a relationship, a friendship, whatever that relationship is.
Right.
Then there's times where the other person is putting more in and you're taking more just because that's where you need to be in that moment.
Right.
But I feel the toxic personality is one that truly is out for themselves and more interested in taking and taking and taking and using that person, using their other friends or connections, without really contributing.
Okay. I think my exposure to or experience with a toxic person is similar sometimes in that way, but also there's always been, if I ran into sort of a toxic personality, it was always somebody that it didn't matter, like no level of effort you put in with them was enough. Uh-huh. Like they just couldn't find like their own sort of internal meter of happiness or contentment or joy or like a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So it's like, no matter, like I used to have friends that, you could tell them a million times, like, no, you're great. No, I love you. No, I love you. You're great.
Yeah.
And they would just be like Debbie Downer. I'd be like, no, I'm this.
Yeah. But it's not, you're not saying like, oh, I suck because I just realized something I did that was really crappy and now I need to fix it. And I'm moving forward with owning it and fixing it. That's different.
Right.
The toxic, and I think they share a lot of traits with narcissistic personalities.
Yeah.
You're just doing that for the attention so that people will tell you how great you are. No, you know what? No, you're a great person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, where you're having to, where you wind up sort of spending a lot of your time or all of your time together reinforcing that person. Yeah. And it doesn't leave you any room to be yourself in that friendship.
No, and there's no improvement. There's no growth. There's no them now trying something else.
Yeah, they won't get out of their own way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. It's just this black hole. And there's this element to it. And this is what I have failed to spot, I feel, in my past, is there's this element of this nitpicking, criticalness, but the way they do it, it doesn't come across always as if they're actually being critical of you or of other people. It's kind of couched differently. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing.
Yeah, I've had some friends where they weren't necessarily like having a problem with, they weren't openly saying they had a problem with things that I do, but they would couch, the language would be things like, oh, I could never do that. Mm-hmm. Like if I was talking about a certain situation, or, oh, I don't know how you do that. and in my head, it'd always be like, it's pretty easy because of me.
Or this one, I don't know how you take that much time away from your children to do that. I wish I could do that.
Oh, you mean the passive aggressive Midwest mom?
What?
Right. I get that one all the time, and then I just give them, the blinking white guy meme face. Like, really? that's what we're doing. But that's a real, heavy duty thing. And I used to, at least in my own life, when I would encounter that particular type of personality, it used to, because I'm the type of person who is loyal to a fault, you really have to do a lot to push me. If you're in the circle, you're in the circle.
Yeah.
But I would get to the point where I felt bad or guilty about the things that were going well for me, because in order to share those, it would turn into a whole course of like, I share something great with you because I'm excited to share it.
Yeah.
Not because I want credit for it, because I'm just happy to share it with you. And then it's like, oh, I could never do that. And then I feel guilty that I accomplished something or that I made a move to do something.
And that, Twyla, is a telltale sign. And I think as women, we don't see it for what it is. Mm-hmm. And instead we do internalize that guilt and then feel bad for our accomplishments. You're not sharing your accomplishment because you're showing off.
Right.
It's you really are proud. Like, I worked hard for this and it finally came to fruition and I made it happen. And if you have a friend that can't share in that happiness for you and be like, I am so proud of you, because they've been by your side watching you struggle, watching you having balls drop here and there, and finally you make it on whatever that is, then that is not a friend.
No. And the thing is, sometimes you are like, I'm trying to get women away from the notion of it not being okay to sort of show off a bit and like self-aggrandize a bit. I mean, we work really hard. Yeah. And we do a lot of really great things. And if you're really my friend, you'll know the difference between me just having a day where I'm like, I feel real good in my shoes and I'm going to toot my own horn.
Yeah.
Or I'm really proud of this accomplishment that I worked really hard for. Or I just need to pick me up today, and I'm going to try to do something to make myself feel better that doesn't involve me like dogging myself so that you'll compliment me.
Yeah.
I won't tell the full story, but it was pretty funny. And we over the summer, some friends and I went to a concert. And the day before the concert, I went to the gynecologist and from a regular checkup. Mm-hmm. And I was joking with the doctor and asked her, she said I was really healthy and everything looked great down there. And I was like, oh, so it's like an A+. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, so it's like, and I'm just being goofy because I'm uncomfortable with a speculum and me sitting on a chair, with stirrups. And as one does when all your business is hanging out. Exactly. So I was joking and I kind of said, so you'd say I have, like a solid gold vagina. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, okay. And we were laughing. And she's like, okay, if that's how you want to phrase it. So for the rest of the day, I told everybody, like, so just so you know, I have my checkup and I have an A+ solid gold vagina.
That's right. If they could give out medals for vaginas, if having a vagina with Olympic sport, Twyla gold medaled in it.
Thank you. So, and it was
home to gold.
Right. And it was a running gag amongst like me and 15 of my girlfriends. And we went to a concert together that night and but it was like one of those things where your real friends get it and real supportive people get that you're just having a laugh, but you do feel good about yourself. I felt good that I was healthy. I felt good that, at this age that I'm doing something right. And then, and I have a close enough, knit group of girlfriends that we can joke about it and it's okay.
Exactly.
Like in my old days, I would have made that joke and there'd be at least one or two girls in my friend groups that are like, oh, I have cramps. There would be something that would be like, oh, now we're gonna.
I have a golden vagina. My vagina aches.
Right.
Yeah, the Debbie Downer.
Right. Where you're
wind out of your sail.
Yeah. Where you're not allowed to celebrate anything. So and the thing is I'm not saying that people don't go through things. Everybody does. Everybody has moments where they feel good or they don't feel good. Or everybody has things about themselves that they're uncomfortable with. Yeah. Everybody has their own insecurities. Mm-hmm. But there is a difference when you're dealing in personalities of somebody having an insecurity that they deal with and they kind of go in and out of, and someone who makes that the forefront of every part of their life.
Yes. How dare you succeed in that area when I am not?
Right. And they can't, there's no joy to be had anywhere. You could say, I made pancakes for breakfast, and they would say,
pancakes make me sick.
Right. And it's like, okay, I don't do that to you. Like, why are you peeing on my rainbow today? It's that kind of a thing.
Yeah, you don't need that in your life.
No.
You don't need that person in your life. And it's one thing I will give guys, well, one of many things. It's not the only thing I will give guys credit for.
But I'm going to be up to like 3.
I was like, that was coming out wrong. They're really good at patting each other on the back and being like, dude, that's a great job.
That's because they're not deep. They don't dig deep enough. I want them to dig deeper.
Twyla, but maybe that's kind of the thing. Maybe sometimes as women, we're making too much or we're going too deep with something. Why can't we just give each other a high five and a chest bump and call it a day? I mean, celebrate. Guys are good at that. Look at football.
Can I just give you a high five? A chest bump would hurt. Guys don't have like 36 double Ds.
Yeah, exactly. Are you a 36 double D?
Why we got to tell all my business?
Well, no, because I am too. Because I recently got measured. Sidebar. But I thought, no way am I a 36 double D. Because to me, your boobs are way bigger than mine.
Yeah, mine are bigger.
They are bigger.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we're both 36 double Ds.
I'm not.
Oh! So we just told my business.
Right. You did. That was all you. Congrats. Listen, you want me to give you a high five? High five, girl.
High five. Yeah. I gold medaled in boobs.
There you go. Who knew this was going to turn into a podcast with an explicit warning on it today?
Yeah,
not
that's
me.
Right.
I started it too. So.
But again, classic example. You know, it's but don't you think men are good at sharing that accomplishment and just say that's awesome?
You know what, they really are good
at
saying.
Move on.
Yeah, they really are saying, you know, like, hey, I did this, or hey, I just wanted to acknowledge my friend did this, or whatever.
Yeah.
They, you know, I will say that men are excellent at, you know, at sort of giving each other that moment of like, and not making a big deal out of it and just having it be. But then again, men are sort of programmed to like go to like
beat
work
their chest kind of thing.
Yeah, like they're programmed to sort of work toward accomplishments. And we don't, as women, we're not really programmed to work toward accomplishments. We haven't been socialized to work toward like goal marker accomplishments in that way.
And that is changing.
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I can remember growing up, being in elementary school, and I was a really fast runner, and I would race the boys.
Me too.
Well, and I would win. But then I figured out quick that boys get upset when you beat them.
Yeah,
at sport.
Just made me run faster.
Really? See, but for me, it was like, oh,
you started going a little slower.
I started to go a little slower, and I started this habit, if you will, of you know, kind of like not shining a light as much on my abilities if my male counterpart wasn't up to that level.
Well, you know, that's okay. We're not gonna go too far off the rails because that's a whole other show.
Yeah,
exactly. No, but because we've both done that. We have both dimmed our light for other people to make them more comfortable with us. But I think that kind of sometimes plays off into like that personality type too, because sometimes toxic personalities are not people who have a problem with themselves per se, but they do have an inability to watch other people succeed or get past them. Like they have their own.
It upsets them.
Yeah, they get very like there's a pecking order in the universe, and if you're not a part of that, like strangely enough, I was just having a conversation about this, and you and I have talked about this before. That like when starting this company, people had me in a certain context. There were a certain place that they put me in their head. And when, as an individual, when you do that, you don't just sort of say, oh, this is my mom friend, or this is my, you know, neighbor friend, this is the mailman. What you say to yourself is, this is who those people are, and this is how I stack up against them. So I may be, you know, like above my one mom friend who I think is too much of this or too much of that, but I am below my friend who owns a company. Or I am neck and neck with the mailman because he delivers my mail and he's a nice guy. Whatever it is, you rank people compared to yourself. And when somebody changes their sort of place in your universe, when they do something or they move in a way that is now not familiar to you, and you don't know how to contextualize them, you kind of freak out. You have to readjust. It's like when your neighbor goes from. It's a great example is like if your neighbor won the Powerball. And up until now, you've lived next to each other side by side for like a decade or more, and you're just, you know, you're the same two people in this middle class neighborhood. You're both middle class. You both mow your lawn. But then tomorrow, that person's worth $500 million, and you're not.
And they don't have the decency to move. They build a McMansion right next to you.
But that's the idea that they change your perception of who they are now changes, and it's not their job to adjust. It's your job to adjust. But it's very interesting to watch the people around you attempt to adjust when they obviously thought of you as in a certain context, and now you're in a different context.
But that is where I think you start seeing the true colors of somebody who is, you know, whether you want to call it a narcissist or a toxic personality.
1,000%.
Is not being able to really celebrate your successes. And I really feel that as women, we are more susceptible to not spot and eradicate toxic personalities from our lives because we were raised to be accommodating. We were raised to be more empathetic. And this is where I'm saying guys, I think, have a better grip on that because they're just like, dude, no, that's wrong. Knock it off. You know, whereas.
See, I don't even think they do that. Dudes very much approach things like how I approach them quite often, which is if you piss me off and I think you're kind of a jerk, I just stop dealing with you. And they don't make, like, women, that is one of the things we do too much. When we want to break something up, and we've even had a whole podcast episode, we'll link it in the comments. But we've even done a whole episode where we talked about, like, how do you break up with a friend?
Yeah.
Guys don't break up with friends. They just drop out.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's more of a clean break. But don't you think because of the way, and you said earlier, you know, as women, we aren't always goal driven. We aren't always, you know, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that is my goal at the end. And that is changing today more than it ever has.
Yeah, I agree.
But it lends itself. And I feel like, I know for me, this is part of the evolution for me as a woman, as an individual, to recognize and spot those toxic personalities and get them out of my way.
Okay, well, I think that's a fair point. So I think we talked about sort of the first category, which is if we were to name it, like, sort of the needy black hole. Like, the person just, you can't fill their well up enough, so it just kind of goes.
Yeah, they just take and take and take and take.
Yeah, now earlier you alluded to, like, what I consider, like, the second category, the users.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the people that are your friends, but somehow whenever they need a specific thing or they don't want to do it themselves, it becomes like your job to do it for them.
Yeah, and you're friends, so you often do, but the minute you need something,
they
are nowhere to be found.
They're water vapor. They're lighter than air. Yeah, like that. And I have I'm noticing that a lot lately because of the nature of what we do now.
Mm-hmm.
Where actually even before when we did radio, we used to get, like, people would cross my path, and they weren't necessarily friends. They were acquaintances of like a friend of a friend.
Sure.
But they would say they want to talk to you, or they want to take you for coffee, or they want to sit down with you, or whatever. And then they would really just expect you to, like, make it so that they could do what you do.
Yeah.
They would, they'd be like, I think I'd be really great in radio. Well, that's congrats.
Yeah.
And they would go, so, can you like introduce me to your program directory? Why do I do that? I don't even barely know you. And then it'd be like, well, but no, but I would be fantastic. I'd be perfect for, like, I can't tell you how many times in the time that we were on radio together that people that were just about perfect strangers would approach me and go, I'd be great at what you do.
And it could very, very well be that they are, but I think to our point, and if I'm understanding you, what you're saying is it's like that's a relationship building point. Don't come at me under the guise of I want to be your friend.
Yeah, or, because you really just want me to connect you to something. You want me to do something for you.
Yeah, because you can also be upfront about that and say, hey, I like what you do. I've had an interest in getting into that.
Yeah,
could you point me in a direction?
Yeah, can you give me some advice?
Exactly, because there's a difference between point me in a direction and actually set up the meeting. Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say even within my relationship with the people that are long-standing relationships, you kind of know who those people are that always ask, can you do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
Like, can you make, everybody knows one friend that's the baker. Can you make 50 of these things for my thing? But they don't really offer to pay you, and they don't offer to pay for the supplies, and they just think you'll do it because you're you and you'll do it. Would you be willing, like everybody knows I'm a pretty comfortable and competent public speaker. So a lot of, like sometimes I'll get asked by people, and people are like genuine friends of mine. They'll ask me, we have this event on the thing. Can you get up and make a few remarks, or could you moderate it, or could you do this thing? And not that I'm not willing to do that. Sometimes I'm always willing to do it, if it's something that speaks to me or I have the time or whatever. But don't make the assumption that I'm just going to do it for you because I'm your friend.
Yeah.
Like, and to be honest, sometimes that part of the toxic relationship actually really steps on something important, which is when people who are supposed to be your friends and have relationships with you expect free things from you that other people will pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get paid to be a public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, they don't recognize this is my job.
Yeah, this is
actually how I make a living.
Right. And so you shouldn't come at me and
if you're a dentist, I don't walk into your office and go, hey, can you clean my teeth for free? Because we're neighbors.
Right. And I understand that I work in a creative field, which means it's a little bit unusual, what I do compared to what other people do, but it's still my field.
Yeah, or at least, and I've approached people, and I've had people approach me as well. I'm all for too when you can barter something. It's like, hey, I know you do this, I do this.
Yeah.
How about I do this for you, and then you do this for me? That is, to me, that's a healthy approach. That's not someone who's looking to use your connections in a way that's not actually building a relationship. It's not really about, you wanting to get to know me.
Right. And listen, I don't want anybody to feel like this is just like sort of a work situation where you run into toxic people. Like, I've been a mom for many years, and I think we all know, as if you're a mom and you've got kids and you've ever had little kids, we've all known that one mom who will say, hey, can our kids get together for a play date? And somehow it's always at your house. And and it's, and it's always, it's always you do, they drop off and you do all the heavy lifting, and it's never reciprocal.
Yeah.
Or, or the parents that's like, oh, you know what? I would love it if we could, we're all going to the same place. We should carpool. And if somehow you wind up doing the
it never goes on the other foot. And I think that's the thing that maybe we could all, take a page out of like Maya Angelou says, where she says, believe someone when they show you who they are the first time.
Yeah. Believe them the very first time.
Believe them.
Yeah.
And I know that is a mistake I've made where, it's just so easy to make excuses, and you like somebody, and if it's a new friend, but then you realize as time goes by, this person is, comes over a lot and loves to eat my food and drink my wine or whatever it is. And it never, quite
never
goes the other
reciprocity.
way. Because I try to be conscious of that, because I'm not shy about going over to my neighbors and being like, hey, I ran out of butter and I'm in the middle of trying to make banana bread.
Right.
And I love it when they come to me and you can reciprocate.
Right. And the thing is, I think just by definition, a friendship should be reciprocal.
Yes.
It should be a give and take. It should be, sometimes it will be imbalanced, but at the end of the day, if you're a friend, that should mean something, not just to the other person, but to you, and you should value it and honor it. And if you're not doing that, if you don't feel like that in the relationships that you're dealing in, if there are people in your life that you don't feel like you're getting anything from, and I don't mean getting things like they do your favors, they do laundry, they buy you things. I mean, if you don't feel better after having an interaction with them, then they're not your friend.
Yes.
If you don't feel better about the prospect of having them in your life day to day, then they're not your friend.
If you roll their eyes when you see them pop up on the caller ID.
Ooh, girl.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that hasn't happened, because it's happened before.
That might be a sign for you.
Where, like, when your kid's busting, you be like, you're not answering that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, but it's so-and-so. I'm like, that's not your business. Go on about your business. That is true. When that happens, you have to sort of step back and take do a real assessment. And you're absolutely right. I think as women, we're trained, and when I say trained, I mean, like, we live in a society and there's rules and regulations that are obvious and hidden and soft and specific about how women should be.
Yes.
And we should
It's a social agreement.
Right. It's a social agreement, and it's one that we should be pushing against and constantly maneuvering and constantly sort of fighting against the more archaic pieces of. But a very big part of that is that as women, we are taught to be accommodating. We are taught not to rock the boat. We are taught not to make people uncomfortable. We are taught not to be mean. And the definition of mean is such a wide, vast sinkhole that the idea of standing up for yourself and self-preservation is considered mean.
Yeah, look how many, with how much things have changed in our culture and society today, with even how women now are being acknowledged, and it's now like okay for us to say, don't touch me.
Right.
You're not,
right.
No.
And
stop doing that.
And now we're only, and think about that, we're at 2018, and we're only now at the point. We're really only now at the point where we're allowed to demonstratively say, you cannot touch me without my permission. Like when someone is saying, like, I was having a discussion with my kids about consent, and my kids asked, should someone ask before they're kissed? And I said, yeah. And that's, as a concept for me in my lifetime, that's really revolutionary.
Yeah. You can, I don't know that it always needs to be a verbal ask. You can tell there's come on, Twyla. Let's say, take it back. Like, you're seeing somebody for the first time, or you've been seeing them for a little while, and you're like, and you're googly eyed and getting close to each other, and it's the end of the night. Are you really going to go, can I kiss you? Although that is sweet for a man to do that.
And I think
I would like that.
I think it says something of someone's character that they would think to do it. So I actually told my kids I told my kids
even the girls.
Yes,
so they wanted to kiss the person.
I told my kids that I think that speaks to a level of consideration of the other person that you are setting a bar very high right away.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't set that bar with you, think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what they think they're entitled to.
And you can do it in a way that you're not killing the romance, too.
Well, yeah,
you know, I mean,
once I was asked,
do you consent to me putting my lips on your lips?
Right.
Do you consent to me putting my hand on your back? I mean, that gets a little ridiculous.
But that's what people do. And I think I said, but even having somebody ask you very, politely, like, or if somebody saying,
I'd love to kiss you.
Yeah, that is the opening of giving somebody permission to be touched or engaged with. Mm-hmm. That's important. And I think that level of engagement, that level of, giving somebody permission or access to your life in a certain way, whether it's your physical person or, your spirit, is a really important thing that we are now shifting towards in this new 21st century. And I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. I'm all for us having a space where if we have more of these and they're more open discussions and they're more specific, yeses and nos put out there before things happen, then we don't have as many of these weird misunderstandings. We don't have many of these, I thought it was this way. I mean, and we do that with our friends too. We do that. We make that assumption where because we've never had the discussion, because we've never, sort of stated, this is how it works. Like I used to tease, you remember Real Housewives of Atlanta? Remember how Cynthia used to have a friendship contract?
Oh, yeah.
And I used to mock that thing endlessly. And then I realized one day that most people aren't like me. I'm very specific with my friends. Mm-hmm. When you're my friend, when you get to that point when you're my friend, I actually make a point to tell you, you're my friend. Mm-hmm. I don't sit down and go, let's have a discussion. You're my friend.
Let's talk about how you're my friend and what that means.
Right. But at some point, if when we've hit open book, I will tell you very specifically with specific language, you're my friend. Yeah. And so you're in. If you actually haven't heard me say that, you're not my friend. And
of course, now I'm searching my mind. Have I heard this from Twyla?
Yes, I've told you. I have told you that. I know I've told you that.
But that is behavior that would lend itself to be able to, again, you realize you have it within your power, and it's okay to say, you know what? I don't like what you're doing.
Yes.
I don't like what you're doing. It doesn't work for me. I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and that's important.
You do what you're doing, but I don't want it in my space. And for me, that's a boundary.
Well, see, and that's really important because I will even say that's something that I'm still learning how to do. Because remember, when we revisit the old episode of of how do you break up with a friend, and I realized that I didn't realize that I had ghosted people for a long time, and that's what I used to do. And now I'm trying to be better. But there's a language and a vocabulary to, if you're dealing with somebody that isn't the best for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a grown up, it would be really lovely to be able to sit down, and you do this very well. You sit down and tell people this is what's going on, this is why it's not working, and I think we need to just not kick it anymore.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm still pretty much the opposite. I will say in my head, you're dead to me. Then I will tell everybody around you, no, they're dead to me. And then I will just stop dealing with you.
You will then ghost.
You'll fade away.
Yeah, and there are times when, that works as well. I think there's something very cathartic though, and I think especially as women, it's very empowering. And you can do it in a way that is not being a bitch about it.
Yes,
you don't need to do it with the anger and the animosity. It's okay to have hurt feelings, and it's okay to, when you recognize someone is taking advantage of you, it is okay, and it is good for you to be like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. Whether you tell that person or not, acknowledge it for yourself when somebody is taking advantage of you or they are crossing a line, and then reinforce that boundary. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even have to cut them out completely. Sometimes you can just downgrade them.
Just got, exactly. You got to push the boundary out further.
It's like on Facebook how they changed it so that instead of unfriending them, you could just unfollow them.
Yes, you don't need to unfriend them.
They
you can
still
unfollow.
Think you're in their orbit.
But you're not.
And that's okay. Like I got lots of people in my life that are in my orbit. They're part of like my extended friend group where we know each other through other people. And it's not, it's not unpleasant when I see you. I just know you and I are not at this level. I don't trust you with my personal things. I'm not going to ask you to do specific things with me or for me. And that's okay. Yeah. I mean, that's okay. I don't wish you any harm. I think that's a part of this too, this whole idea of toxic relationship. People don't understand how to disengage because they think they might be harming somebody else by doing that.
Yeah, and you don't.
And that's
you don't
not your job.
And you hit the nail on the head. You need to disengage. You don't need to fix the person. You don't need to make them do something better. You don't.
Listen, that's part of, and I think that's part of the codependent toxic relationship.
Oh,
and I've been in a few of those where I just want, like, you're so sad and so pitiful, and I really like you, and I just want you to be better.
I'm gonna save you.
I'm gonna help you. I'm going to help you. I'm gonna. Yeah, and you invest way too much energy, way too much time, way too much of your own sanity into trying to help lift somebody up. And the thing is, you can't lift somebody up when they're wearing cement sneakers that they put on themselves. They want to be down there.
Yep.
And you have to leave them there.
And they will take you with them.
Yes,
they will try to take you with them. That is the other telltale sign that you have or you're in a toxic relationship, I feel, is when they want to bring you down with them. When things are not going well, when the things that they're failing at. You see this, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I've seen this. I've had friends who decide that, okay, I'm gonna step out on my husband, or I'm gonna step out on my wife, and they think that you should do the same. It's like, oh, come with me to the club, and be like, girl, no, I'm married.
Yeah,
like, no, why would I be doing that?
I want a side piece. It's okay. Oh no, I think we've all met somebody like that.
That is toxic.
Or even worse, they decide to do something messy and then they tell you all about it, and now you're complicit in the messy.
Oh, I know.
Right, and I'm like, I don't want to be complicit in your messy. Don't tell me you're.
And it
don't
is
tell
okay
me.
to say that. And
I was like, leave me. I tell all my friends all the time. I always like, listen, I've told you this before. I always say, if the gossip gets to me, that means it's everywhere, because I am usually the first person to tell you, I don't want to know, I don't want to hear it, don't tell me. So if I hear it, then I'm like, girl, you got a problem.
Yeah, and don't include me in your shenanigans. Don't tell your spouse you were with me. Yes. Don't, do not do that.
Okay.
That, again, is a boundary.
It's funny because now it sounds like we have really messy friends.
Well, I think we have on occasion. We are women in our mid-40s. We've lived a long life. I
can happily say that those messy friends are behind me. But yeah, I've had my fair share of messy. Girl, why did I can't. That's not your husband. Don't put me in this.
Well, and Twyla, how many times have we told our children? And I think that we, as moms, as women, we sometimes forget this advice that we give our kids, and we tell our kids, you are known by the company you keep.
Ooh, girl. Thank you.
If you don't want to get in trouble, if you're playing a sport and you know that if you get caught drinking in high school, you are off the football team, why are you going to a party where there's drinking? Because that's all you need to do is be there.
Listen.
And people will see you as being guilty.
We have a restaurant in town, and you know what it is. We can't name it. We're not going to name it. But it's known as the Cougar Hookup. And you know where it is.
We got a couple.
Yeah, we know where they are. And if you go to the Cougar Hookup, that's the whole point.
Especially in the summertime when the college boys are home.
Right. That is the entire point. You don't go there to get cocktails. You don't go there because they got good fries. You go there because the youngins are showing up trying to pick up cougars. Yep. And I know friends, single and not single, that go there to do that. And that is their business. I know not to hang out there because you're not going to put me on Facebook talking about something I saw Twilight the Cougar Hookup this weekend. Yeah. Nope. Because I'm not trying to be your wingman at the Cougar Hookup. I'm not trying to be a part of the Cougar Hookup. I am not in this.
Yeah, and that is it's a boundary. And I think that's kind of the key of all this, is when you can establish and maintain those boundaries with people, how close or how far they are from you, that is being productive in knowing, then you see it coming. That's been my lesson. If I would have maintained certain boundaries earlier, because when I looked back, I'm like, you know what? I violated my integrity on that. I knew it was a boundary for me, but I let it happen. Mm-hmm. And then it ended up slapping me in the face. It was my letting it happen. It's not even the other person's fault.
Right. You let them in.
Took down the boundary and I let it happen.
Okay. So what advice do you give somebody in terms of the actual boundary? If somebody is listening to this and this is their first time going, oh my gosh, I have toxic people in my life. How do we help them set up the basic? What's the basic couple boundaries or handful of boundaries that they should be maintaining? Well,
for me, it starts with self-awareness and knowing yourself. To establish boundaries, girl, you need to know what your boundaries are.
True. If you don't know what you're willing to put up with, what's a no for you?
Yeah, if you feel taken advantage of, if you feel uncomfortable in a situation, if it's the friend who you're married but they want you to go to the cougar hangout, whatever it is, you got to know what your boundaries are first. And secondly, you need to, if you're not okay with it, you will become okay with it in practice, in exercising those boundaries and being honest. I'm actually not comfortable with that. That's all you got to say. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable going and doing that. That's not something I want to do.
I always say practice your no. Mm-hmm. Really firmly.
God, doesn't it? You know what? It seems to come down to that so much.
It does. I mean, it's if it's something that you're not comfortable having a discussion with them about the thing they're asking you to do or what they're asking of you or the favor they're asking for the 50th time. Just say no, thank you.
Yeah, and be honest.
And the thing is, I understand sometimes it's harder to say no and leave it and not have an explanation. Because I've learned to do that a lot. Like people ask me to do stuff, and I'll go, no, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be waiting for me to explain why. Like, oh, but I'm busy. I have this thing. I'll just go,
Yeah. Nope.
no.
Yeah.
But that takes practice.
Yes.
So if you're learning how to practice that, the easiest muscle to use to do that is use all these electronics they gave us. Use your phone. So if somebody's calling you, don't answer that phone because you know that person's calling to ask for something or put you in a weird position. Let them roll to voicemail. Guess what? You can respond to their voicemail without talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
You can send them a voicemail back and not talk to them. You can send them a text or an email.
You can
and not,
Snapchat them. You
Right.
can message them.
Listen, you could private message them on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. You don't have to talk directly to somebody if you feel like you don't have enough resolve to keep them from taking advantage of your boundary.
You could send a bouquet of fruit with a nice note.
That's nice. I would only do that if we're breaking up, but that's it. Actually, I wouldn't even do that if we're breaking up. I'd ghost you.
We're over. Here's
Yeah,
some bananas and pineapple.
That's it. But really and truly practice your no. Practice saying no, I don't want to do that, or no, I'm not doing that, and come up with whatever your go-to is. If you need a crutch to help you get out of it, find something in your life that is like, oh no, work is crazy, I'm slammed. Oh no, I can't. I have kids stuff I got to manage. Oh no, my husband and I, I have some time with my husband coming up. Whatever it is, use your no and practice your no until you feel confident enough to say no without an excuse behind it.
Yeah, know that it is your choice. So often I see, and I'm guilty of this, and I know people who do it. We often feel like, well, I can't do that because, so I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do about it with this relationship. No, you know what the handcuffs are that are on you? It's not what the other person is doing to you. It's the fact that you don't put the boundary there, that you don't say no.
Right.
That's what it is, because we can't change what other people do and what they've been doing it since the beginning of time. They're going to continue doing it. But take your own handcuffs off and be willing to not put your fear of what they will think about you ahead of what you think about yourself.
Exactly.
Love yourself first. Put your, what do they call it? Your life jacket on first.
Yeah, put your life jacket on first before you help somebody else.
Put your mask on first.
I've told you before, I'll say it again. My life motto is what other people think of me is none of my business.
Yeah, and if it's a toxic person anyways, why do you give a crap what they think?
Right. And
what are they going to do?
Don't care about what they think. Don't care about what you think they're going to tell other people, because here's the thing. Your real people, your real friends, your actual friends
already know
exactly what they need to know about you.
And they probably already warned you about that person.
And they will overlook and see straight through somebody's stupid intentions. If they're doing something just to get at you, or just to come at you, or just to try to take you down a peg, people can see that. People can see petty from a mile away.
Yes.
Trust me, because a few times I've engaged in it, I get busted really quickly. But that's just the way the world works. Yes. So you don't have to do that. You don't have to have your sense of worth or anything else be dictated by anything outside of you. You get to decide.
Nope.
And once you decide that for yourself, and you decide what you're worth and what you're worth having and what's worthy for you and what you're allowed to have, you won't actually tolerate these type of people anymore.
And it feels good. You feel so much more whole. I know this is something that I continue to work on. And I think I continue to work on it and see it and work on putting those boundaries there. I feel good.
Yep. I understand that completely. So I guess that means we need to answer the question and make sure we answered it. Can you spot a toxic person?
I wouldn't say I'm 100% on it yet. I feel like I'm working on it. I feel I'm better at it, but I'm still working on it.
I think I can spot them. I think the real question for me is always, have I matured enough not to go at them directly? Can I let a toxic person gracefully exit my life, or do I have to kick
set
them
on fire?
Yeah, do I have to kick them in the butt on the way out the door? That's growth for me.
Get the Beyonce baseball bat out in lemonade.
I had a bat before Beyonce did. I feel good about that. It's true. So, as always, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. We have a lovely website, Matriarch Digital Media. It's matriarchdm.com. We have a show page there, and guess what? You can email the show now. Just send an email to hello@matriarchdm.com, and we will hear all about what you have to say. We're also on social media. Go to Facebook. If you put in Matriarch Digital Media, you can like our page. We have discussions there. We talk about all the news of the day, and it's a great place to engage and talk to other women about the things that we talk about as well. And, as always, this is a podcast. So you know what's great? You know what helps us out? If you subscribe to it. if you rate it, if you review it, and all the other fun stuff that goes along with that.
And it's free to do that.
It's totally free to do that, and we appreciate the support. So, and speaking of support, we couldn't do this without all of you. If you weren't listening, if you weren't engaging with us, we wouldn't be doing this, and we have such a good time doing it. So thank you so much for your support as always, and we will talk to you